Hello and welcome to this demonstration video of n2n. Today I want to show you how you can make business modules very easily with the tool that we call Hangar. So let's assume that we are taking the business models that we have demonstrated in our tutorial quick start guide at n2n.rocks. Here we have a blog article. A blog article can have as many comments as there can possibly be, and a blog article is assigned to a category. A category itself can have as many blog articles as there are imaginable. So we do have three different business objects with two different relationships. One relationship is one to many and the other one is many to many. So let's go and see how this looks in n2n Rocket. n2n Rocket is our CMS. As you can see, there is nothing installed right now, so we go on to our tool called Hangar. Here we need to install a module first. The module, we call it QS, as in quick start. I could add some more properties here, but I want to make this quickly, so I just named the name of the module. As soon as I have created my module, I can add entities in this modules. As I want to store them all in a folder called business objects, I create the namespace QSBO and name my blog article. So this is all we need to do for our first business object. But a business object is nothing without properties. So the first thing we do is we add some properties here. As you can remember from our object models, those are the properties we want to add. So first we start with a string for the title. We want this string to be required. Then we have a lead. This we leave non-required. After the lead, we do have a text field called content HTML. Further on, we want to allow HTML tags in there. So this is what we do usually. We name the property HTML. So just to make sure that there is HTML or can be HTML in there. The next thing, we want to make a path part. A path part is a normal string property. The path part will later on help to identify our blog article. Then we want to have an online status. That's a Boolean field. Yes. And further on, we have the relationships to comments and categories. But as those objects are not ready yet, we just leave our blog article as it is right now. And we create a second entity in our namespace. Let's create the blog comment. We save this. And then it's ready to go for our properties. Here we have an interesting thing. I switch back to our object model. We have a many-to-one relationship to article first. So here we have this blog article and this relationship. I show you how it's done in Hangar. Yeah, we need to go and find the many-to-one relationship. We give it a name, blog article. This blog article is always required. I search the proper target entity. And here I can name the cascade type. as nothing should happen if block comment is basically deleted. The cascade type is just right as it is, and we're ready to go for our further properties. We have a property called email on the comment. We have a property image. That's another interesting one, because in n2n we have a thing called managed files, where the file is stored directly on the database as well. So that's our image file. Then we do have a content. Let's assume that we would not allow HTML in there, so we just call it content right now, and we want to store the created date. So this is all for our entity block comment, so I go ahead and save it right now. As you can see already, we have the two business objects created, and we want to have a third one called block category. I saved this, and as you already might guess, all we need to do is add the proper properties on the entity. For the category, all we have is the name field, and we should not forget, maybe we make the length of the category a little shorter here. That's just perfect, and we require the name. We should not forget the relationship that we have on block category to block content. I show it here. I haven't mentioned the relationship down here. I could add here blog articles as well. So I jump back to Hangar and add the many-to-many relationship here. So I just name the articles. Target entities are blog article, so that's just fine. Cascade time suits well. So that's it for our business object block category. So I need to jump back on blog article to save the relationships here as well. And the first relationship we have is the relationship to blog comments. This is a one-to-many relationship. Let me jump back on the object model to demonstrate it. We do have one blog article on many blog comments, so this is a one-to-many relationship. Let's add a one-to-many relationship then. This is comments. It's not required to have any comments, so all we need to do is name the field that maps the relationship. And here we have an interesting cascade type, because if we remove an article, there's no sense for the block comments. So we can say cascade type is all. This means that if a blog article is deleted, all the comments are deleted as well. So that's it for the relationship to comments. Then we have another relationship on categories. Target entity is category, and we can say that it's mapped by articles. So this is it. We can save the whole thing. And now what we need to have is to have the proper database tables as well. This is very easy to create the necessary database tables. We can just hit the generate table command with a right click on the mouse, and our database is already set up and ready to go. So this is basically it. We have created the business objects, which is just great. maybe no, let me jump back to the next step. The next step would be that we create the configuration for Rocket. As you can remember, Rocket is still empty here. So if I want to manage my business objects in Rocket, I need to create something we call iSpecs. I can do this right here just by clicking on the proper commands. I do this 3 times. I can change them to types. I need to refresh the view here so that you can see I have created the types here. I could also refresh my view, and then you can see that there's a link now here that lets me jump right to the spec of blog article. Let me do this. Here I can give the label for our type. This is an article, and I can add the properties here as well. I don't add the ID because the ID is basically managed by Rocket, so there's no sense in showing the ID in Rocket. So let's jump through the properties of our objects. I have a string field that is manages the title of my blog entry. I want to show it in the overview. This is all correct. The field is mandatory. That's perfect. I jump to the lead. Here you can see it's a multi-line. The title is not multi-line. N2n has the ability to check different presettings, and this works quite well. So if you want the lead is probably basically a little longer, and it doesn't make sense to show it in the overview, so I remove that cross here. Content HTML, that's another field that doesn't make sense to be shown in the overview. Here I can choose a mode of our WYSIWYG editor, which is a CKE instance. Here you see we have the type CKE. Again, Hangar recognized the correct type for our content HTML. It just suggested that it's not a simple string field, but rather a CKE editor field. So this looks good as well. There are further options down here that I'm not going to explain today. I just jump to the next property, path part. That's another thing that n2n recognized. This is a path part I property, which means that this is a field where automatically a string ID is generated for a user-friendly generation of a URL. We can choose a base field. Not now, because I need to save the entity first and refresh. So now you see my 3 properties that I have already handled are here in the drop-down, and I select the title to be the base field for my path part. This means that if a blog article is created, the path part is generated on the base of the title of the blog. I want to be the path part to be editable, so I added the cross here. So this is basically good to go. So we jump to the next property, the online property. As you have seen, the online property is again correctly recognized, which is perfect. So we can jump to the relationship. If I choose to have the comments in the overview, I see how many comments an article has, and I can jump right to the comments again. So this looks perfect for me. I jump to the categories. Also, this looks pretty good to me. So I save my first spec right now. We jump to the block comments, and also here I can jump directly to my iSpec. Let me see, we don't need the blog in here for the label of this business objects within Rocket. And again, I add the properties that I want to manage within Rocket. Let me check if the properties make sense here. Yeah, that looks pretty perfect to me. Email is a normal string property. That's perfect as well. Maybe we want to have a little bit nicer label. We can change the label here. The email can be shown in the overview. That's good. Another interesting thing is the file. We have an image here. n2n has recognized the file property correctly. We can choose to have the file visible in the overview. That's good. Also, we can name the allowed extensions here. That seems pretty good to me. So we jump to the next property, which is content, normal string property. We don't need to see that in the overview. Everything else sounds good to me. I jump to the created state. Also here n2n recognize that this is a date property. Don't need to see that in the overview, and we don't need a time here. So this is perfect as well. So our second business object is made ready for Rocket. So all it is left over is our last business object category. Here you can see the plural is not spelled correctly, so I correct that. Again, I'm adding the properties here. That looks pretty good to me. We have reduced the length, so we need to reduce it here as well. Everything else should be just fine. So I save my entity, and the last thing I can do is I can name an identity string. An identity string is how the business object is identified within Rocket. The comment can be identified by the email of the sender. The article doesn't make much sense because all the comments of the same article have the same article here, and article would not be very identifying. So I choose the email to be my identity string for the comment. Maybe, yeah, that just looks good. And here for my identity string pattern for the article, I just choose the title. So that's basically it. All I have to do now is to add the launch pads. I can add the launch pad just by clicking here. What this does is, I need to save this first because before I create the launchpad. The launchpad is a thing that we can add to the menu of Rocket. As you remember, our menu of Rocket is still pretty empty. So to have a menu entry there, I need a launchpad, and I can demonstrate that here. I can create a new menu group now within Rocket. I call this simply content. And now I can add my launch pads here. So all I need to do now is press the save button. switch back to Rocket, do reloads, and what is looking here is not looking good at all, but that's not so how do you say in English? That's not so that's good that it shows the exception, because it tells us that the blog article doesn't have any commands now to show. So this is a thing that we have forgotten. We need to add commands. Commands are the overview command, the detail command, the edit command, the add command, the delete command. That's just the basic commands. I do this for all of the three business objects here. Commands, adding the commands. So after saving, we should definitely be ready to go. I hit refresh now, and as you can see, that's all I need to do within n2n Hangar. As you can see, I have now my articles. I can hit new entry. This is my first article. It's pretty hard to talk and type, so I'm just typing. All I do is I'm saving now my first article. As you can see, this is my online command. It's only here. I can switch an article on and offline. I haven't created any categories. Let me create a category called web design. I hit save and repeat to just add another one, and maybe a third one. So there are some minor CSS bugs that are where we are still working on it, so don't care about those. I'm just showing you how to add a category now. I can just hit select and say, well, this article should be published in the categories of web design and CSS. Hitting save and return. A thing that we haven't seen now is normally, of course, the comments would be created in the front end by some guests that we have on the homepage. I just add a comment to first article, and here I can upload an image. Well, what's the one to take? I just take any one and hope that's a good one. If we do some configuration, we could add the created day automatically, of course. So here you see the image. Also, everything is recognized automatically by n2n. So this is our demo for today. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you are convinced that it's very easy to create business objects with n2n, Hangar, and Rocket. As you have seen, I haven't programmed a single line of code. It's all made in Hangar, and the business objects are now ready to go for you. So our tools make it very easy for you to create or to adapt business objects, and so you can put your efforts on all of the logics that you want to have when you program an application or a module for your website. Well, enjoy, and see you in another tutorial video.